What's up, everybody? I'm PumaPete.
And I am Moosen.
And we're Friendly Fire Co-op back doing another Divinity update video today. March...
Hooray!
Yay, hooray! Update. Is it March 16th, I think? March 16th.
Yes.
Divinity update. A lot of changes, and of course, we are going to cover some of the major changes. We obviously can't cover them all. There is a ton in the patch notes. A lot of them are like fixes and such. So we'll definitely link all of the patch notes in the description of the video, but this will just be us kind of covering some of the big stuff. I'll show some out of gameplay footage and some of the stuff in gameplay as well. But the first big change, completely unrelated to gameplay.
Macs are no longer as useless.
Yeah.
Can play the game.
Added the Mac version. That's not just like a... I guess they were doing something that you could do it. This is like a full Mac version though, so it actually properly runs on Mac. So that's exciting. If you...
For all you Mac users.
Yeah, I don't know why you have those.
Wrong.
Get rid of those, seriously. Second big change, nothing to do with the screen right now, but big changes to enemy AI. So they should fight more intelligently. This includes using potions, arrows, and scrolls, which I guess before I never noticed that they didn't use... I always thought they used scrolls, because it always seemed like they would cast a spell once.
I know some of the enemies would use potions, like the big orc did.
Yeah, maybe some of the smaller ones wouldn't use them. Maybe some of the like specifically scripted enemies would use stuff like that. But now all of them are capable of doing it. I don't know exactly how that works, but
fun, more ways for me to die.
Yeah. They're also supposed to use spells more intelligently, so I assume that means less blasting fire into like mountains and stuff, which they did seem to have a tendency to do. Especially some of, again, like some of the trash mobs almost
and
seem to have worst AI with that.
They may do combos now?
Yeah, maybe. That one surprised me. Maybe they can like target the ground for like environmental hazards and stuff, kind of like what I like to do. That'd be cool. I'm excited to see exactly how that works. Again, we don't know exactly how all of these changes affect it because we're doing this basically as soon as we could, and I've played just a little bit to get a hang of some of the changes, but that's about it. Other big change, nothing to do with the screen again. Followers will behave more intelligently now. Please, God, let that mean they won't walk through fire if there's an easy path around the fire. I truly, truly believe that what this means is the next time we're doing that stupid lava area, Medora won't just walk
will follow
directly
you
into the lava. Please let that be what it means.
Valerian, please.
I think that has to be it. I can't imagine what else. The description of followers will behave more intelligently now. Again, that's all it says in the notes, so it's kind of hard to tell exactly what that is without getting more experience with it. But one of the bigger changes is the reason I'm on the character creation is changes to skills and talents. So first we'll cover the talents. Actually, we'll cover the skills first, or rather the abilities, because they kind of relate very much so to the talent changes. So as you can see right off the bat in the ability screen, completely new categories. So weapons, defense, skills, personality, craftsmanship, and nasty deeds. Instead of, if you remember, it used to just be warrior, mage, craftsman, and personality, I think. Dude, rogues do it from behind, Mason. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So weapons, obviously bow, crossbow, single-handed, and two-handed. Just there by themselves. There used to be another weapon type that started with a T. Do you remember that? Tenebrium?
Yes.
What? I never know what. I don't know what those
like
were.
It was like dark damage.
Perhaps it's no longer an ability at all. From what I haven't seen it anywhere, so I'm not particularly upset with that. But the way the weapon abilities work now is a lot different. Now when you level it up, it's just a straight damage buff to that type of weapon. So here you see single-handed is at 1, so it'd be level 1, gives 10% damage boost to single-handed weapons, daggers, swords, axes, and maces. I don't know exactly what used to change. I think possibly hit chance and things like that. But now it is just a damage buff at every level. I think it's just a 10% incremental damage boost for each one. For defense, armor specialist, bodybuilding, shield specialist, and willpower. Makes sense to kind of have all of these in here. One of the things I'm really happy with is they explained how willpower works a little bit more in the tooltip. Before it used to just have that white line that said effects saving throws against magical and mental spells. Now it very clearly says underneath, effects saving throws against feared, mute, charmed, frozen, stunned, cursed, slowed, and petrified. So happy to see how that works. Same with bodybuilding, now gives a much more clear description of what that affects, which is neat. Armor Specialist is pretty obvious with how that works. And Shield Specialist essentially works the same way as the weapons, 10% blocking boost to shields on each level. So no big change with that in comparison to the weapons. Skills. Mason can't see this right now, but I can.
Nope.
Completely different names. It's no longer, you kind of would expect to see this and have it be Way of the Warrior, Way of the Rogue, Way of the Ranger, and then Earth, Air, Water, and Fire Elementalist. No longer that at all. So new spellcaster skills: Aerothurge, Geomancer, Hydrosophist, and Pyrokinetic and Witchcraft. Which
now you're just making up words.
I know, right? Hydrosophist has to be a word they made up themselves. I'm convinced that's not a word. We'll look it up.
Maybe it's a word in whatever foreign country they're in.
Are they from a foreign country?
Yeah.
Oh, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe it's a real word and we just look dumb now, but definitely seems different. And those skills now work way differently than they currently do. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the gameplay footage. But here you can just see level 1 allows you to learn and use 3 water skills. So all of the other things that used to be associated with it completely different. No longer affects requirements for learning specific skills, and it no longer reduces cooldowns for specific elemental abilities, which I'm pretty sure it did. Same with Man-at-Arms was Way of the Warrior, Expert Marksman was Way of the Ranger, and Scoundrel was Way of the Rogue. Those all now just allow you to learn and use 3 rogue skills. The passive buffs attributed with those are now talents, which we'll cover in a little bit when we get to the talent section. But I'm going to kind of cover my opinion a little bit more on this in the gameplay. I think there are positives and negatives to the way they've changed this around. Personality is just Charisma, Leadership, and Lucky Charm. So nothing new there, but the nice part with Leadership is now in the tooltip it gives a more clear explanation of exactly how it works. Boosts initiative and damage for level 1. And in-game I'll show you it now actually shows a demonstrative buff on your character, which I think is awesome. Because before, it never really showed Leadership in action. That really frustrated me because you never really knew if it was working, and now you know it does, so that's really cool. I'm excited about that. Craftsmanship is bartering, blacksmithing, crafting, lore master, and telekinesis, which doesn't seem to belong in that category to me. You don't make anything with telekinesis, but whatever. I'll allow it. But the big change in this is blacksmithing. Blacksmithing, instead of just being used to repair now, is now required to craft any weapons and armor that involve metal. Which seems like a fairly big nerf to crafting. Now, I never did crafting, but you did, right, Mason?
Yep, did a bunch of crafting.
Yeah, so would you agree that this seems to make crafting a lot less useful now? Because now if you want to craft weapons and armor, you have to... I don't know if you have to scale equally into crafting and blacksmithing or how exactly that's going to work. But now it almost seems as if crafting is only good to craft leather equipment and things like that.
I feel like if it requires metal in the components, you're going to need blacksmithing.
Right. So, do you think you'll need crafting and blacksmithing, or just blacksmithing?
Probably just blacksmithing for weapons. I'm thinking crafting's more armor.
Okay. We'll have to see how that plays out. But either way, I think that's like a fairly significant nerf to crafting in my mind. It's definitely a buff to blacksmithing. Blacksmithing's a lot more useful now, which I think is cool.
Well played, Larian.
Right, but crafting is now... You now have to level 2 things just to use it, so that's a little tricky to me. And then the last category, Nasty Deeds, are the former like rogue-esque abilities, lockpicking, pickpocketing, and sneaking. So those kind of make sense to follow in there. The one thing I like is they have a more accurate description of what the levels for pickpocketing do. So now you can see a higher score allows you to pickpocket more intelligent and more perceptive characters, and allows you to pickpocket heavier and more valuable items. King of Skeletons, Dracus. You better be able to pickpocket him now. We'll see how that happens next time. But I think it's really cool that they just kind of give a little bit of an explanation about how pickpocketing works. So overall,
it's kind of confusing what it used to be. You used to have a certain level for like how much the item costed, and if your level wasn't high enough, you wouldn't be able to steal it.
Well, I mean, it does kind of still work like that.
Yeah, but in the beginning of the game, you could never like steal the smelly items off of the leader of the town. I forget his name.
Mayor Cecil or Captain Arius.
Mayor Cecil.
Okay.
Because his thing was worth 350, and you'd never have anywhere near the skill you needed unless you were to go out of your way and level a bunch of stuff up first.
Yeah. So we'll see how that affects it. I think the change to the skill abilities, like the Elementalist and the Warrior and the Rogue and the Ranger and all that, I think that opens up, that has the potential to open up more skills that you can take in Personality and Craftsmanship and Nasty Deeds, because you don't need those for the requirements quite as much. But at the same time, those skills seem nerfed a little bit to me, so we'll kind of see how that plays out, and I'm gonna get to that a little bit now with the talents, because as I mentioned, the passive bonuses from those skills are no longer associated with them. They're now talents by themselves. So if you look over the talents list, there's a bunch of new ones. There's Arrow Recovery, which is Arrow Recovery gives you a 20% chance to recover an arrow. And I assume that's the elemental ones because you don't need just arrows.
It would be the elemental
ones. And that talent, to take that talent, it requires Expert Marksman 3. So now I think the way that worked is you used to have Expert Marksman 3 to just passively get that buff. Am I right about that? You played a Ranger. I didn't. So
I don't remember that ever being a talent.
It wasn't a talent. It was associated directly with the ability for Way of the Ranger.
Then yes, you would have to be that high of a level.
So what this means, kind of, in my opinion, is you're almost forced to take these extra talents in order to get these buffs. So it's cool that there are more talents now. Because in my mind there weren't an extremely high number of useful talents, but at the same time you have to use talent points that you previously didn't need to use to get these. So I don't know, to be honest, this almost seems like a flat nerf across like all characters to me. Because you're now,
maybe they want their game to be harder.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Would you agree with that statement? It almost seems like a nerf. It's gonna make it a lot trickier. You
gotta pick and choose.
Yeah, your talent points are going to be even more scarce now than before. And before, if you were doing like a hybrid character like I was with the Battle Mage, they were already pretty scarce. So we will see how that plays out. But just a real quick rundown of the new talents just to show you guys it. Arrow Recovery gives you 20% chance to recover an arrow. Backstabber allows a character to backstab with daggers and knives and requires speed 7. So before, were you just able to backstab as the rogue?
Yeah.
So you can no longer do that as a rogue. You have to be able to take that as a talent now. And you have to have 7 speed to do it.
Well, you see, I hope they improve the hitboxes of backstabbing, because there's times where I'm behind the person and it doesn't.
I want to say that they said something about that in the patch notes, although I'm not 100% sure of that. So I might be wrong about that. But other new ones, now I think Headstrong is also new. Headstrong gives you a 20% bonus against being frozen, stunned, petrified, and knocked down. That might be an old one, but I want to say it's new, specifically because it's associated with Scoundrel Rank 4, which is the Way of the Rogue new name. So that's actually an awesome talent, but you still need Way of the Rogue 4 to get it. So, you can kind of...
I think it was, but I think it was 10%.
Okay,
all of those
maybe. I'm not sure exactly. And again, it's hard to really go back and check because I'd have to go back and watch our old video footage to like see the old changes because they don't have them specifically listed in the patch notes. Next new skill, Mac the Knife, requires Scoundrel 1, reduces 1 AP from the cost of using daggers and knives. Now, I don't know if that used to be a passive associated with it. If not, that's an awesome buff to rogues. Having to use less AP for daggers and knives is great. I think that's really good because they were definitely weaker. But if they were already receiving that passively, it's not as good, obviously. So we'll see how that works. I don't know exactly how that works. Picture of Health, another new one. Picture of Health gives you a 5% times Man-at-Arms extra vitality. So that's, I also believe, it requires Constitution 8. I don't know if that used to be a Way of the Warrior passive, or it's just a new ability, but either way you need 8 Constitution to get it, so still going to have to be pretty tanky to get it in the first place. So we'll see how that works. Next new one, Quick Draw. Reduces 1 AP from the cost of using ranged weapons, requires Expert Marksman 5. I think that's a really cool talent. Don't know exactly how that was associated previously. Sidestep gives you 10% extra chance to evade hits. I'm not sure if that used to be a rogue thing, but now it requires dexterity 10. So it's definitely going to be a later talent that you can get, but I feel like that's an awesome, awesome talent to have. And I think it's cool now.
It makes them less squishy.
Yeah, and maybe if you're going some like pure melee build, like that you aren't going any casting, maybe you'll actually be able to get, so you can have real low intelligence, maybe you can get high strength and high dexterity, and maybe, you know, be just kind of an all-around fighter.
Funky Dex Halberd build that you wanted to do.
Yeah, so maybe that's going to be a thing now. We'll see how that works out. The next one, Swift-Footed. Swift-Footed gives you a 20% movement bonus. I don't know if that used to be associated with the character, but it only requires speed 7. So that's actually not that high of speed for requirement for that talent. I think that is a really, really cool talent, both for mages and for melee characters, because mages obviously will help with your positioning, and you'll probably have 7 speed on a mage anyway for the AP recovery. But also for melee characters, you'll just be able to reposition and get near enemies so much easier. So I think that's really cool. And if it got removed from being associated with one class, I think that's even cooler, because I think that kind of helps everybody. Next new skill, Thick Skin, gives you 5 extra base armor plus man-at-arms times 2, and requires bodybuilding 2. That's obviously a very nice stat boost. I'm not sure how that worked as well. And the last new skill, Weather the Storm. Weather Storm gives you 10% times man-at-arms extra magic resistance, and it requires man-at-arms 5, which again is the new name for Way of the Warrior. So, pretty cool. Don't know exactly how that used to be associated or if that's completely new, but that is definitely an awesome, awesome buff, because obviously if you have man-at-arms 5, gives you 10% times 5 man-at-arms, which is the max anyway. Flat 50% magic resistance across the board if you get your Way of the Warrior that high, so that's a huge buff. Now, just going to make a couple quick notes on changes to specific starting abilities, which kind of affect classes. I don't know if these are all the changes with all the action points, but this is specifically ones that, A, I noticed in the patch notes, or B, I noticed on a real quick scan through abilities. And some of them are really, really significant. So the first major change that I saw, the Knight's ability, Cure Wounds, now requires 6 action points and has a cooldown of 20 turns, which is a huge cooldown. And it still is melee range, but it heals 51 health points immediately.
Wow.
Yeah, that is like a massive, massive buff.
It's like more than
to that ability.
Health.
Yeah, early game, especially if you're on hard, that is way more than like a mage or a rogue's half of their health. So
it's like all of their health.
Yeah. So that is obviously a huge, huge buff to the Knight. Does that make the Knight, you know, better than the worst class? Maybe. Maybe it's slightly better than Rogue now. Because when I was looking at the Rogue, it didn't seem like their abilities were changed that much. So, you know, does this make the Knight better? Yes. Does it make him better than the Warrior?
Does it make him good? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to see how that works out. Again, I don't think Encourage is particularly useful still. And, I mean, Battering Ram is Battering Ram. It is what it is. But Warrior starts with it anyway. So, you know, we'll see how that change affects the Knight, but definitely a really nice buff that I think he needed. Second change is to the Wayfarer and the Witch starting abilities. Used to start with Summon Wolf, now has Summon Spider. Wayfarer and the Witch both have this, and that is because the Spider is now the like level 1 Earth Elemental summoning instead of the Wolf. So I don't know exactly the strength of the Spider when it comes out, so I don't know if this is a buff or a nerf. Spider has a chance of inflicting poison instead of bleeding, so that alone leads me to believe it may be a nerf, specifically because poison is bad early. You know, early on because of the high propensity of zombies. So I think that's a bit of a nerf to those two classes, but at the same time the Spider is very resistant to poison attacks, so kind of a trade-off. Maybe it'll be a little bit tankier. We'll see, but overall I think that is a slight nerf to Wayfarer and Witch. We'll see how that goes. One of the next, what to be I consider a humongous nerf, Cleric's Divine Light. It now no longer deals damage. It does 100% chance of giving a willpower nerf, and it sets warm status to enemies, but it no longer does damage.
That's the worst.
Yeah, that is a huge, huge nerf to Cleric, because now Cleric, I mean, what do they have? They have melee power stance, meh. They have Divine Light, which in my opinion now is just dropped in usefulness immensely. Like, yeah, a debuff to willpower, okay, but nowhere near the usefulness it used to have. And he still has minor heal, so I mean, not terrible, but I mean, is cleric better than knight now? Yeah, I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Cleric can heal. Can't heal people, can they?
Cleric has the minor heal.
It's the minor heal, but that's
Target
not as much
10,
as the...
yeah, 10 vitality per turn for 3 turns. So overall 30, but you can use it more often, and it requires less action points. But I think this is a really big nerf to cleric. I mean, it kind of sets them... They're now basically maybe on the same level as knight, and now maybe we're just picking between one-handed or two-handed weapons. So I don't know how I feel about that change. I know in the character class discussion, we had talked about how the cleric was one of the stronger ones, like the top 2 with the wizard. But this definitely drops them. And it didn't seem like
0 out of 10.
It didn't seem like the wizard got hit that much. Like, they still have the Midnight Oil Flare combo. I think Flare's base damage got nerfed a little bit. But they could still set fires everywhere, which to me still makes them like the best starting class. So I don't know what you can do to change wizard to make them not overpowered. But, I mean, wizard is now very, very clearly #1 in my mind, and cleric dropped a lot. So we'll see how that works out. And the last big ability change for enchanter, slow current now only costs 4 action points, and I'm pretty sure that used to cost me like 6 or 7 when I first played an enchanter. So I don't know if that's a new change or if that happened in the last update, but if it did, I missed it, and that's awesome because slow current is a great ability that used to just cost too much. So I definitely think that moves the enchanter up possibly a bit in usefulness. Again, he still conflicts with Jahan a little bit, which I think is his biggest problem, but enchanter definitely
eventually
nice.
You should be able to get rid of Jahan, so it's...
Yeah. I think it's really funny, though, the classes they touched upon, specifically the big buff and the big nerf, were like 2 of the classes that you and I had kind of said were, you know, one of the top classes, one of the bottom classes. Yeah. And they got hit the hardest. Obviously, Wayfarer and Witch got changed a little bit, but I think that's a little bit of a nerf. Yeah, maybe. I had a Wayfarer ranked fairly high. And even Enchanter got a little bit of a buff, and he was kind of mid-range. So, overall, I like the changes to the balance of the classes, but I think Cleric got hit a little bit too hard. So I don't know how I feel about that. But at this time, I'm going to go ahead and jump into gameplay really, really quick. I'm going to jump back to the main menu. Pardon me. I did do just a little bit. I want to show you guys some of the gameplay stuff as well. So we'll load in, just quick save 1 real quick. And there are a couple, that's all of the like out of gameplay footage stuff that I want to discuss. Again, there's more changes than what we talked about, but there was no way we could possibly cover all the changes in the patch notes, because there's about a million different things. But the first big gameplay change that I want to talk about, you now have a backpack in your inventory, and you can open up the backpack and put stuff in it. To me, that is now a key bag. I'm so excited that they added this.
Key's the worst.
Yeah, keys...
How many slots is it?
It is 5 by 4, so 20 slots. To me, that's going to be 20 keys. And I'm super excited to add this. Both characters start with one.
That's nice.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe you can use to carry really heavy stuff too. That would be kind of cool. Because there's only one weight associated with the backpack. I don't know if that'll go up as stuff's in it or not. But either way, I'm really excited that they added the backpack change. The other super awesome change to the inventory system, there is now a sort by option. You can sort by latest added, gold value, weight, and durability. Still not, honestly, not exactly what I was looking for sorting. I think all I really want for sorting is the ability to, you see these tabs on the side, equipment, consumables, magical ingredients, miscellaneous. That's all I want. I want a sort that will sort by category in my like overall inventory.
Larian, please.
So, I think, would you agree with me? I think that's more useful than the options they added.
I just want a button that groups things that are similar together.
Like,
that's all.
I like that they added sorting. I think that's great. I don't know exactly how I feel about value. So let's just test this real quick. Gold value. So it's nice they group them all together so there won't be giant gaps in your inventory anymore, which I just showed right there. But still not quite as useful as I had hoped inventory sorting would be. Not super sad about it, but I think it can be done just a little bit better. And seeing as how they all clearly have a type associated with them because they go into these inventory categories, I feel like that shouldn't be too difficult to add that to like the sort by function. So if they add that, I'll be really, really pleased with how the inventory is. I think that's like the last big inventory change I'd want to see before it goes live as a full game. So we'll see how that works. Other cool inventory thing is just a transfer to character option. So if I click on these minor healing potions, I now have a use option or a send to Roderick, which is my other character. So I can click that instead of dragging and dropping into inventory. That's just a new way to transfer stuff. Send to Scarlet. I'll just send those back. I don't really feel like ungrouping. I'm going to worry about that later. This is just kind of my test save anyway, to show you guys that. Over on the side here, there's a very clear aura for leadership. Leadership rank 1, initiative +5, damage +10%. For whatever reason, Scarlet has willpower +1, initiative +5, and damage 10%. So she's getting a slightly higher buff. I can't describe exactly why, but either way, I'm really, really pleased that that is now a thing, because it really frustrated me before that there was no like clear description of what leadership did, and I think that's an awesome change. It definitely makes that ability feel a lot more useful, because before it just kind of seemed like you knew it was doing something, assuming Larian was telling you the truth. I don't think they lied to us, but like you never really.
You better not be lying.
You better not be lying. This buff better actually be a buff, and you're not just lying to me. There's no way to test it because I can't debuff it, but I'm happy with the way they changed it. And the last and like the biggest change is the way skills work. So I mentioned before that the way you learn skills is no longer associated with the respective school of that skill. So like if you want to learn a Way of the Warrior skill, you don't need Way of the Warrior 5 to learn something. That's not how it works anymore. What you may need is, 10 strength to learn an ability or 12 constitution. And then you just have to have an open slot for that ability. And the way the slots work is, at level 1, you get 3 slots of that respective ability. So if you take Aerothurge, which is the Air Elementalist, you have 3 open slots for any air skill that you want, assuming you meet the requirements. Level 2, 5 skills. Level 3, 7. Level 4, 9. Level 5, unlimited amount of that. So I like the way that works, and I think this is a nerf early game because you may not be able to get as many of a specific type. I think this is a buff late game, though, because now if you just have very high intelligence, you can throw, like, 1 skill in Pyromancy or Pyrokinetic or, like, 1 skill in Hydrosophist and get, really, really good water elemental spells without needing level 5 water elemental. So overall, I like this change a lot for casters because I think it's going to really help with, being able to kind of maintain effectiveness without having to invest to level 5 in every single school of magic, which, previously that was kind of the only option. So if I open up my skill book real quick, here you see there's Flare. It's my 1 fire elementalist spell that the wizard starts with. I have 2 more spaces for learn new skills from skill book. Same with air magic. I have nothing. Earth, I have 2, and special, I have 1. So now I'm gonna go into a vendor real quick. Vendors have way more stuff now, by the way. I think that's kind of a cool change because before vendors kind of seemed not too useful. But and now I'll show you the skill book. So this one obviously only has water and air elementalist, but here if you look at, we're looking at Head Vice now. It's clearly labeled as an air spell still. But if you look at the requirements, it doesn't need Air Elementalist. It requires 6 intelligence and level 2 of your character. And if you have that, you can learn it as long as you have an open air spell. It doesn't matter what level your air spell is, you just have to have an open slot for it. Another example of this, kind of for the higher end, Chain Lightning requires intelligence 12, requires level 18, just requires 1 Air Elementalist spell. So this was Chain Lightning, I don't know for sure, was either a level 3 or level 4 air elementalist ability before, so you had to invest really heavily to get that. Now you just have to have high intelligence and a high level, which if you're a caster, you're going to have anyway. So I'm just going to buy Head Vice real quick just to kind of show it. I'll buy it and transfer the gold over. And it essentially still works the same. I can just learn it. Pops up on my... Oops, missed the use. Pops up on my tab, and now if I look at my skill book, I now have 1 out of 3 of my air elementalists used. You can also forget spells. So let's say early game you have 3, water spells that only require 6 intelligence. and then maybe you hit that 12 intelligence mark and you can learn higher level stuff, you can then forget your less effective water spells and learn new ones. So that's cool. It doesn't like shoehorn you and kind of make you stuck with the abilities you take early game. You can kind of drop them and pick them up as you go, which I think if they didn't do that, it really would have negatively affected casters. But at this point, I really like the way it works. I also think it'll help declutter your action bar as a caster. I know, like, I used to have like everything in one school of magic that I could, and then I would have like 1, 2, and 3 of my action bar all completely filled. And now it kind of limits what you can do, but I think it's a good form of limiting, so I'm really excited with that change. That's the last big change we want to discuss. Now we're kind of going to discuss how we're going to handle this update, because again, new update means saves are not compatible. Yeah. The way we're going to handle it this time, though, is we are going to play through the early game off camera and get back to the same point. And the reason we're making this decision this time, as opposed to what we did last time, was starting from the beginning. You guys that watch our videos have already seen us play through the beginning twice. We've already played through the beginning, multiple times on harder difficulty. We want to see new footage. We think you guys do too. So we're going to play through the beginning on easy mode. Get back to the exact same point, which is in one more video. The last video that we're going to be putting up is tomorrow. We'll probably get new footage up Monday. I don't think we're going to have anything up and ready for Sunday. But it will be from that point. We might be different classes. I don't know exactly how we're going to handle that. But the progress in the game will be as close to identical as possible. And we'll just keep rolling from there. I don't think there's any new content with the patch, so you're not missing anything new early game.
I can't find anything on the
Yeah,
list.
I don't see anything in the patch notes, so if they add anything, they didn't tell us about it. So, again, when the full game comes out, we'll go back to playing through from the beginning. But at this point, it's still just the beta for another about a month and 4 days. So until that time, we want to show you guys as much of the footage as we can, and having, 15 more days of the exact same footage is not going to help with that too much. So we hope you guys like that decision. If you are really, really against it, feel free to comment about it. But I think this kind of works better for us and for the viewers. With that being said, that's all we wanted to talk about in this video. Again, remember to subscribe if you'd like to see more Daily Divinity Original Sin videos and quest guides. And thank you very much for watching, guys. Bye.
Bye.